This is a marketing works. Reno, you obviously realize every new opportunity, and we're going to put a marketing spin on that this hour. Now this session, while it'll start out essentially as each of our panelists here giving a little bit of an overview of what their spin on marketing is with respect to realizing new opportunities, and after that, and hopefully the bigger part of this will be an audience participation thing. Ron Counts has offered to be the mic runner, so I want to remind you that because these sessions are being taped, it's important that if you have something to say, if you have a question, would you please ask the question on the microphone, and if you are going to answer the question, also wait for the microphone. Don't yell out your answer, because some of your answers are very valid, and if they are valid, we would like you to use the mic. If they're not valid, you don't need the mic. I'd like to introduce to you, I'm Tim Crawford, and I'm a Square Dance caller for 32 years now. I'm 41 years old, and my real life consists of I own an insurance agency at home, and so my daily life after getting my kids dressed in the morning is about marketing. And while I'm not actively involved in marketing like I used to be, because now I'm administrator, I do in fact oversee the marketing activities that my people are using. So I'll lend a little bit to the discussion, but I really want to let Tom Rudebock here and what's your name again? Mike Hogan. So we'll start, we'll flip a coin, and we'll go by age. So Mike Hogan will go first. And I'd like to introduce you to Mike Hogan. Mike Hogan is from Omaha, Nebraska, and his real life consists of, you've been called, what, 52 years, you're 43 years old, you're a father of just like 28 kids, and his real life also consists of a marketing opportunity, which I'll let you speak to him. One last thing before I go further. Two dignitaries that I want you to recognize is Jim Masco and Patty. Jim is the chairman, newly elected chairman of the Arts, and marketing is one of the initiatives that the Arts is about to undertake. So Jim will be, feel free to kick in any information you'd like to do about the Arts, and if any of you have any information or any questions of the Arts, Jim will be here to help you. We'd like to focus on marketing, but certainly if you have some questions with respect to the Arts and their marketing efforts, Jim will be able to answer those. Also, we have our CALLERLAB Foundation Marketing Director with us, Mr. Jim Hensley from CMS Marketing Services. Stand up, Jim, so you can see it. Jim's the only one in purple, I believe. And Jim has, from the inception of CALLERLAB, being associated with CALLERLAB, focused on specifically marketing and our image change and all those other facets to go along with it. Jim was instrumental in putting together a plan that basically the Arts was born out of. And Jim, of course, if you have anything to say at any time, feel free. Just remember to use the mic. So if there's no further delay, I'd like to introduce you to Mike Hogan.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of my background. I am 58 years old. I started calling actually a little bit older than you. I was maybe 13 or so. And in my day-to-day life, I'm first and foremost father of two children. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, and we're starting to get real busy in a lot of things. So many of you have probably been through a lot of that. My regular job, I work as an account manager for Journal Broadcast Group, which is a company that owns radio stations, television stations, and newspaper. I specifically work in the radio part of our industry in Omaha, and I day-to-day visit with business owners about how to market their business, specifically using radio, but also as a bit of a consultant on how you use other types of media, including our competition at home, which is, of course, cable, television, newspaper, billboard, direct mail, and on down the line. So the standard media products that most businesses are using. I just wanted to give you a couple of viewpoints that I have. I think in our case for marketing square dancing, first and foremost, the most important thing in my belief that we can possibly do at this point is to get square dancing back out and in front of people. I have talked to a number of people who have used newspaper as a medium for advertising their classes, and nobody showed up. Now, I hear that from advertisers every day, that this didn't work and that didn't work. All of those various types of media work if you use them the right way. If we advertised that you could buy a product or a service that you didn't know anything about, had no interest in, okay, and we put that in a nice half-page ad in the Omaha World Herald, which, by the way, would cost $4,400, you would get no response because there's nobody out there that wants that particular product, that has a desire for that product. I remember when I first started dancing and calling back in the mid-'70s, especially through the summertime, we were always dancing in a parking lot. We were always dancing at the mall. We were out in front of people all the time. Now, yes, we had a lot of numbers, but we had the opportunity to actually put our product in front of people. So if we're doing a lot of what I call to action type marketing right now, which is come take our square dance class, the problem with that is that folks don't want to do that. And it's probably because they don't, at this point, understand that it's not turkey in the straw. We don't have bales of hay laying around. I'm just repeating things that we heard from the research that CALLERLAB did a few years ago. They don't know that it takes 20 or 30 or 40 nights to learn. And frankly, until you tell them, they probably don't care. What they know is, in their mind, is that we elbow swing and we wear the frilly dresses, and that, well, I don't, but certainly we have that. But we need to do a better job, in my opinion, of educating dancers what square dancing is all, or non-dancers, what square dancing is all about. So to that end, I have a couple of examples of things that are maybe at some point going to end up in winning ways that I have seen done. Is there anybody here from Minnesota? You may be able to help. I don't know if you know more about this project than I do, but in Minnesota, there was a young lady at one of the cable networks that did a half-hour documentary about square dancing. And she doesn't dance, but she adorned the frilly dress, and she went to the Minnesota convention, and she went to various dances, and she primarily talked a lot about the benefits of square dancing, the healthy side of it, the social side of it, the physical side of it, both mental and physical. And it's a great documentary. That is a half-hour tape that they now use that's continuous loop, and they get out in front of the public. They go to their state fairs, and they go to they have booths at various exhibition events, and that is running consistently. And it really isn't a whole lot about just music and calling. It's a lot more about why you ought to become involved. It's a great piece. They've got that onto their local access network for cable. And for those of you that don't know much about local access for cable, in most cases, the cities contract with cable that they have to provide local access. So their responsibility as a cable outlet is to provide the training and the equipment necessary for you to do some type of local programming. So they've been able to record that, they've run that, and they have since, and this is where it gets a little fuzzy for me, but they have since, I guess, done a number of additional tapes. Is that correct? And they're able to run those. Now, I don't know if that's had an impact on dancers in their classes. It has? My expectation is it has. Go ahead and speak to that. But microphone. Is it on Winning Ways now? Cool. You just added that then. Fairly recently. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm Steve Eglin, and I'm from Minnesota, actually Iowa, but belong to the Minnesota clubs. And at regional meetings we've had, they brought this tape around, and it has helped. Mike's on the tape, and they interviewed him from a dance he did up in the cities, and it's mostly being shown around the cities, a half-hour, 45-minute videotape on local access, and it's brought in the last time in the multi-cycle that Milt Floyd and Danny Saltstrom taught, 210 dancers. So they have given any caller who is associated with Minnesota the right to use that tape. and they just did it at the state convention, and then they went to local clubs in the Twin Cities area and expanded on that. So that's one way that marketing does help.
Wow, thank you. That's more phenomenal results than I even knew about, so that's great news. Now, I want to challenge you thinking about this. You know, part of our issue is how are we going to fund all of this? Where can we go? What can we do? Certainly the dances that we can set up, if we can get out and dance in front of the public, all of that's going to help. You've seen the T-shirts that say, add quality to your life, learn to square dance. We have those available here in the vendor booths. We could get people wearing those. All of a sudden, if everybody in our organizations that are involved in square dancing in our cities were adorning these type of things again, putting the sticker on the back window of your car, wearing that shirt, whatever it is, getting out in front of people so they just frankly know that square dancing is going on. Today, I think that our dancers are pretty proud of our activity. I think that they love what we do. We need to say that to the public. And I don't care. Yes, you're going to have some people go, square dancing? Wow, isn't that kind of hokey? Well, you know what? I'm damn proud of it. And I think that we should be out in front of people talking about it. Now, here's my challenge for you. If local access just got 200 and some people from a local free, okay, but in that same realm, how many people watch local access? Now, how many people watch, compared to that, how many people watch a paid cable or a cable channel that's really got more like home network or garden network or, you know, community, but not just community calendars. I'm talking about a true station or cable channel that people will watch. Everybody's into trading spaces now, right? That's a huge, huge show right now. All right, this type of a program, if we had the money to buy the time to play it on a network like that, that has, not infinitely, but I mean many, many multiples the number of viewers. If we got 200 from a station that nobody watches, imagine what we could do if we could get that onto a station that a lot of people watch. Okay? So kind of think about some of that stuff. Here's another, we're talking about new opportunities, and this has been mentioned a few times at some of our conventions. Homeschooling. Homeschooling today is probably as big as it has ever been. And it's government regulated. And part of that government regulation requires that there's some form of a physical type of activity that's provided. All right. There is, again, this is back towards the Minnesota area. There is an area that where a caller has focused on home schools and has since, Lanny, are you in here? Lanny knows more of the details than I do. But anyway, has focused on homeschooling, has had 2 classes, started a new club, now has 2 youngsters, an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old that are learning to call. I was 13 when I started. So you can see that that's a great opportunity for the future of our activity. And it's family-oriented. And they have at this point, I think they've graduated something like 80 dancers from their classes, and their retainage of those dancers is pretty high because they're providing what that group thinks is a great activity. You know, they're homeschooling, and part of that lends to the values that they want to teach to their family members, okay? And our activity dovetails so very nicely into that. So there's been some huge success with that. Here's a story locally in Omaha. We have a couple that dances with one of the clubs in Omaha that are instructors at Creighton University. Now, Creighton is a pretty well-respected but fairly small college. A lot of business, law, medical, that type of work. And they happen to teach, I think they're in the maths. I believe they teach calculus and those type of things. They sold, if you will, they went to administration and said, okay, we have an activity that we love, that we think has got a lot of great things that dovetail into what you're trying to teach here. It teaches the social side of it, so it fits into some of their core activities. It teaches, in their case, because of all of the fractions, quarters, halves, three-quarters, formations, all of that lends itself very nicely into mathematics. It lends itself very nicely into teamwork. It lends itself nicely into social. And what they were able to do was to convince the university to let them bring in a caller and do a series of dances, beginner-type dances, and their students earn extra credit. So it's tough to get kids to go, right? But as soon as you say, you're in my calculus class and you can get bonus points if you'll go to 2 nights of this class, boom, it is full. Now, I don't know how many new dancers we're going to get from that today, but those folks have had the exposure to square dancing the way that it truly is, okay? And on down the road, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they know what square dancing is about, and we have an opportunity to get those people into our activity. Let's see. Local schools. We have a session this year about teaching in schools. I would encourage you to attend that if you can. I know you can't go to everything. I'm not sure if it's taped. If it is, and you can't go by it's an interest session, so I assume it's probably taped. Pick that up. We need to do a much better job of getting back into the schools. I have kids. And today, well, when I went to school, square dancing was part of the curriculum for phys ed. And my daughter's in 7th grade. Usually we did that about 4th or 5th. And it was never introduced. It's not on the curriculum anymore in her school system. And I suspect it's not on the curriculum in many school systems. In addition, when it is, it's not necessarily the way that we want it projected. So go to that, because if we can, how many, most of your callers, how many of you are retired? Okay? So those of you that are retired, if you could set up a program to the schools where you could do a series with your public school system and come in and teach those kids, how many would do that? How many have the time to do that? Exactly. So those of you that have the opportunity, I, of course, have to work. So it doesn't lend itself real well. But if I could, I'd love to go in. And certainly if they had it in my children's school, I would go in and do that. Public access channel, we talked about that. Universities. Just one more. We have two more, I'm sorry. We have an area in north central Nebraska which is sort of pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot going on. It's in Valentine. And Mary Channer Paul, who's a caller who was from kind of south central part of the state, moved up into that area. They used to dance a lot up there. There was a dancer that figured out she was there, and just from his enthusiasm, he got out and talked to the folks that used to dance. And today, that club went in 1 year from having no club. A new caller came into the area, and somebody got excited about it. And because of that, they now have something like 7 squares of dancers and formed a new club in Valentine, Nebraska. That wasn't anything new in marketing other than word of mouth, and it was one person that said, wow, we have a chance to dance again, and I'm really excited about it. And as soon as you go up and talk to somebody and you're excited about it, that's a great opportunity to get those people to go, yeah, I'll give it a shot. The dances are fun, and now they have a new club. We have 7 new squares of dancers in north central Nebraska. I have no clue where they all came from, but we're sure happy to have them. The last one that I have on my notepad here is the Internet. I got an email about a month ago about eBay and how you can buy square dance clothes on eBay and all kinds of things. But you can't buy square dance lessons on eBay. Now, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you offer a nationwide or worldwide media outlet like that where you can go and buy stuff and say, I can buy this set of lessons and I can take it to my local club wherever and make it work. But it did lend me to think about what are we doing with that Internet? It's free. You guys get spammed? Anybody get spammed? I hate spam, but I'll tell you what, if you're getting spammed for square dance stuff, you're going to read it? If it's coming from CALLERLAB, if it's coming from the arts, okay, and you know what these organizations are and what they're about, are you going to open it and read it? So we could certainly take a much bigger advantage of that, communicating with our own people. And eventually, as the arts continues to move forward with all of these organizations involved with it, we may be able to do some type of a national program where through eBay or through some other form, we can offer dancing to the non-dancing public, and it will be available to them wherever. So some things to think about. And I'll quit hogging the mic. Thanks.
Thanks for the mic, Mike. I should just, Tom Rudebock is the chairman of the RPM committee. Mike is the chairman of the marketing committee. In the packet, you'll notice that the description says the triad. Does anybody know what the triad is? Well, you guys know. Let me just explain the triad. There are marketing special interest committees within CALLERLAB, the marketing committee, the RPM committee, and what's the third one is the grant writing committee, that are all interconnected because of their focus of getting new people and getting their resources in order to get new people into the activity. Along with that is we also kind of include loosely is the Caller Liaison Committee. And that's because if we do come up with a national marketing plan, we're going to need some way to distribute it. So the liaison obviously is a great way to do that. Anyways, that's what the triad is. And because RPM is part of the triad, I want to introduce you to Mr. Tom Rudebock. And Tom is from Latonia, Ohio. And he is currently has more time on his hands, but he'll tell you about his real life. He was a money man. So welcome, Tom Rudebock.
Thank you, Tim. I just last December retired. They turned me out to pastor. I was a branch manager for a bank, and we had a lot of marketing there to do. They were always giving us goals. A little bit about my background. I called my first tip when I was a freshman in high school 5 years ago. I have got 2 sons, 3 grandchildren. Unfortunately, I haven't got my son's square dance yet, but we'll work on it. So, but I want to kind of piggyback on a couple of things that Mike has talked about and add a couple of others. He was talking about the cable TV and that type of thing. The Winning Ways program that was initiated by the board of directors or board of governors, 2 years ago or thereabouts, the RPM committee was tasked to find Winning Ways programs to put out there. Our goal is to give you some ideas to expand upon and motivate you. The program from Minnesota is on the Winning Ways program or on the net. Fortunately, those people give us a good write-up, and when we put it on there so you can go in and check and see what they have done. Many of the things that Mike has just been talking about is totally thinking outside the box. You know, not doing what we've always done. If we do what we always done, we'll get what we always got. So we got to keep looking for new and innovative ideas, and the local access TV that he was talking about is one of them. I was also got the part about the eBay. The individual that forwarded some of the stuff onto me, they're advertising line dance lessons. Now, I'm not computer savvy, don't know all that, the ins and outs of that, but there's got to be a way we can get square dance programs on there somehow. Another successful program where people were thinking outside the box, and I just talked with somebody just this morning, and again, this is on the Winning Ways program. Down in Texas, they were running a 3 or 4 weekend program taking people through mainstream. Consolidated, real, a lot of material real quick, but they've got a 90% retention rate. That's phenomenal. Most of us, if we get 50%, we're happy. One of the things we have to do in our marketing is be aggressive and not passive. One of the things I've got jotted down here is when we're doing our demos. So often we see people go out and do demos. There's no planning behind it. We have a group of dancers show up. We play some music, call some figures, and then move on. But we've got to be aggressive when we're doing that. And one of the things is we need to take our demos where the people are. And granted, it's going to take some effort on our part, but I talked to some people not too long ago that there was a great big RV show in our area. They contacted those people and took square dancing to that. They were able to tie into the PA system that was covering the whole RV show, and they had that music broadcasting out over the system, and it helped draw people. And when you get those people there, we got to be prepared for them. Number one, we don't want to make it a show. They'll think we're professionals. We got to make sure that we're using music to fit the people that are there. If we've got a wide range of people, then we got to use a wide range of music. We got to have prepared handouts, business cards, flyers. And what so many of us do, and I've probably been as guilty as this as anybody, is we don't collect names and phone numbers and addresses to follow up to them. Another good marketing thing is news releases. There's a multitude of free publicity out there if you just approach it properly. I'm not a newspaper man by any means, and I don't get any royalties from the book, but there's a good book out there that I've pushed. It's Public Relations Kit for Dummies. There's a whole chapter, or maybe 2 chapters in there on public relations and on news releases, how to do them, how to prepare them, what to do to get the attention of the editors. And one of the things when we're doing news releases and or advertising, paid advertising, when we're doing it, we got to gear it to the people we want to grab their attention to. If you want to attract the men, gear your article or your news release, your advertising to the sports page type place where the men are going to read it. If you want to grab the ladies' attention, put it on a society page. But when you're doing things, be point specific as to who you want to direct it to. And granted, we want to get both sides, but many of us know that the women drag the men there for the first 2 or 3 times, and then the men drag the ladies back. So where we focus our energies. And one of the big things, and we used to get this in the banking industry quite often, is we sell the benefits, not the features. And when I'm talking about selling the benefits, we talk about the exercise. Smoke and drug-free, meeting new friends, mental stimulation, all those good benefits that go with it. We don't talk about how long it takes to learn. You're not a dancer till you graduate. Those are the features of the program. We don't hide them, but don't talk about them unless you're specifically asked. As Mike said earlier, many people don't know how many calls they have to learn to get into the program. In all these things we've been talking about, we need to keep our club, our dancers in the public eye. Press releases, doing demos, highway cleanup signs. If your group is involved in doing some charity work, any type, get that information out. And the more we keep our name out in front of people, the more people will recognize us. And going out to eat afterwards is if it's properly done, and we all have fun, and that's the thing of it. If we're going out to eat, let's have a good time. People will see that we're a fun-loving group. A couple last things I've got jotted down here is, number one, don't be ashamed to toot your own horn. Whether your club has a caller or whatever, make sure you get that information out there. And where there's a will, there's a way. And there will be many specific items talked about. This afternoon or tomorrow in the Winning Ways program. We're going to have a lot of specifics on what some of the clubs are doing. We just kind of hit an overview today because I didn't want to steal the thunder of some of our panelists because I have seen their material.
I just want to say a couple of real quick things, and then we're going to open the floor for some discussion. And I'm going to draw on Jim Hensley to talk. Jim, if you could just take 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, and discuss cause marketing for us, because that's a valid thing in just a second. Some things that I've seen that are undergoing that you might want to consider as marketing techniques is something called the workplace exit information. So people are retiring, and I'm not sure that this is the case in the United States, but in Canada, for example, the government mandated that when people retire, the employer is required to give them some information about how they are going to retire, I guess, how they're going to live, what they should do. Health information is part of that. And the Canadian Square Finance Society has put together, and the government commissioned a video disc and a disc with all types of information, contact information, and square dancing is part of that. So square dancing is designated now by the government of Canada as part of the workplace exit information package that workers get. And on that disc, they specify the 1-800 number in Canada if you want a 1-800 square dance, and it kicks down to the local organizations, and people can, unfortunately, that's a marketing strategy that requires the customer to contact the vendor, which is never the best way. Jim is going to discuss the cost marketing in a second. Another strategy that I've seen that worked great was one of my club members actually did this, and it was fabulous. And for years, it worked wonderfully. Every Wednesday in the local newspaper, the 25th year anniversary notices were in the newspaper. When we got those notices, my club members would go to the telephone book, find everybody with that last name, and then send them a congratulations letter from the club, signed by all the club members saying, congratulations on your 25th year wedding anniversary. We think that's great. And because probably they got married in their 20s, that will put them 40 to 45. If they're 25 years married, their kids are probably in their 20s, don't need babysitters. Maybe that's a perfect target market for it. And that did very well for a long time. They get lots of people who call them back and say, thanks for the notice, but the Bob and Joan Smith that you think of is not us. And they would say, well, why don't you come square dancing anyways? And some did. The other thing I want to ask is how many people actually are doing classes, mainstream classes, or 10-week classes, or first night classes? How many people are actually participating, actively doing that? If we could double that number, we would double the number of people that would have an activity. And marketing is such a simple process. Do you realize that if every one of our customers, our dancers, each one of our customers gave us only one lead that we were successful, we would double our size of dancing. Marketing is really boiled down to be that simple. If you could empower our resources, the dancers, people that we talk to weekly, 52 times a year, every week, if we could get them to give us 5 names and we could only secure one, we would in fact double our size in square dancing. If we did that for 5 years, we would exponentially increase our size by some number. The other thing that is happening, and Jim may touch on this when he talks for his 2 minutes, is the health slant. Marketing, you have to come up with all kinds of great ways to do this. But square dancing, we have a bunch of people in square dancing that are of advanced age. They generally, our current population is made up of people who are retired or are seniors. And they are the biggest part of the population right now. Companies and the governments are focusing on this group to try to find ways to make these people have a better quality of life for the last 30 years of their life, 20 years of their life, and also to have them have resources. So they're putting a lot of money into healthcare. The insurance industry released a report, life insurance industry released a report a year ago, or not quite a year ago, that said that because the population is living on average 1.75 years longer, something like that now, because of our healthy lifestyles, that the insurance companies had the best profits they have ever had in their lives. Billions and billions of dollars of profit. We should be able to get some of that money to launch a marketing campaign, because insurance companies would love it if we could prove that if you square dance, you are less likely to have a heart attack, less likely to have back injury or back pain. Maybe Alzheimer's could be tied to the fact that square dancing is good for you. Less people have Alzheimer's. The only people that would probably not get any benefit from that would be the claims side, perhaps, of insurance. But the insurance industry is a wonderful place for us to go to. And if we can find a way to market square dancing as a healthy lifestyle that is good for you, I bet you that the insurance industry and the government would throw a lot of money our way to help us get more people into the activity so that people would live longer, and insurance companies would make all this money, and the government wouldn't have to look after us when we're decrepit. And so, now Jim, if you could just talk about cause marketing for a couple seconds.
20 seconds to talk about health, cause marketing.
You're right, that was
I'll be
intentional
here
of me.
afterwards.
You have 90 seconds.
I'll be here afterwards in case anybody really wants to understand anything. I do want to say a couple of things real quickly, and I want to echo. By the way, I want to thank these guys. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing a lot of good stuff. Let's give them a hand. This is not just a sit in and listen session. This is good stuff. I'm impressed. Homeschooling, I just want to echo what Mike said. There are about 3.5 million kids now. It's supposed to go to about 5.5 million in the next 5-year period. Don't miss that market. There's a program for it. School system, I can't tell you, but as a government, we're going to spend about $5 billion over the next 5 years in trying to help kids lose weight. Have we got a way to help them? Yeah. We need a video that does that? Yeah. I could be at the Department of Health and Education if I had one. Former dancers, we know that there's about 1.5 times as many people who are still healthy enough to do it, who danced as an adult, were happy with it, and are not now dancing. Your best market potential, a guy who's happy, for whatever reason, club politics or whatever, he left or partner left or died, these are the best prospects you have. eBay, there's great potential. 21% of the American public in our research have danced as an adult. We also know that if you danced as an adult, not got taught by that 6th grade teacher in the 6th grade, but as an adult, you're 50% more likely to have a positive image towards square dancing, which is our principal problem, which is the wrong image. These are just issues that I can't help but reflect on and echo back to you. Thinking outside the box is absolutely the only way. There's 100 things we can use. When I used the term, we were just talking about it. When I used the term at a discussion I had at a seminar I held at a 50th seminar about winning ways, this was what we had intended for, because there are a lot of people doing things right, and we want to continue to get that input. Cost marketing is what I was asked to give 2 minutes on. One of the most successful kinds of marketing in the United States in the last 20 years has been cause marketing. And that is when you walk in or your wife walks into a grocery store and you buy product A rather than product B because 10 cents on every product you buy goes to cancer or whatever it happens to be. That's cause marketing. People, 80% of the American public loves this. We worried about, when I first came in and did this 3 years ago, I talked about putting $5 on a festival and using that to help promote marketing. And people were concerned about it. On the contrary, people will actually come to your festival because there is that $5 there. They won't stay away because instead of $65, they have to spend $70. Cause marketing is very successful, and we should think about this when we start to do our own, because we have one of the best causes in the world. And the people we're going to for these dances we're suggesting for fundraising, they believe in this cause better than the average cause that people believe in. So cause marketing is not something to shy away from. It's very successful, and we have a very legitimate cause. I didn't take too much longer than 2 minutes.
Thank you, Jim. So we are running into like the last half hour. So we've done our part, and we refuse to do any more other than to run the discussion. So now I know that there are people out there who are desperately want to tell us about their successful marketing strategies. So Ron will start.
Well, I don't have all the answers to it, but I received an insurance mailing some time back that caught my attention. After I retired from insurance, they were trying to get me back, I suppose. And I got something like this. What do you do when nobody's buying what you're selling? And I thought that maybe that could apply to square dancing. We certainly don't have enough buying what we're selling. So you change the product, you change the name of the product, and maybe you can attract some other people. We were in Colorado Springs limited by a place that you could pay a reasonable rent for, because the main square dance hall is booked year-round, every night except the first Thursday of each month. We all hate to see a club fold, but one of the best things that happened to us was a sister club folded last October. A year ago, well, really 2 years ago, I told Kit, my partner, that the club was dying. I could see it in the way the people in the club members reacted. They would not join a square of visitors. They would let us, 3 couples of visitors, sit down rather than them break up their conversation and get in the square so they could dance. The club eventually folded last October, and I got the Saturday nights that they were using starting the 1st of November. I have the hall every Saturday night year-round. I have a minimum rent nut of $30 per night, and it goes up based on attendance beyond that. We started a campaign. We got it so quickly that we didn't have an advertising campaign to promote it. We were going into the holiday season and knew that that was the wrong time to kick off something, because people would ignore it because their mind is focused on making pumpkin pies and buying Christmas gifts. We put our program together during the last 2 months of the year, kicked it off on the 10th of January. We fell back onto something that had been successful for us in the past, a free chili supper. We advertised through flyers. The only cost we incurred for advertising, other than a few stamps, was printing up about 200 flyers that our club members distributed. We got newspaper advertising, TV advertising, radio advertising, website advertising, all for asking for it. The first dance was held on the 10th of January. We drew in excess of 150 people. I had some advertising survey forms that I wanted to fill out to find out what source brought people to us. Normally people are reluctant to fill out forms with their name and the phone number and email address because they've done it at home and garden shows, and they've been barraged with phone calls soliciting them for things. I told them over the mic that we would not do that, but we wanted that, and I had door prizes. I used those as drawing for door prizes. I had some unwanted CDs, DVDs that I just put out on the table, and I would call out a name, I'd get a number, count down from the top, call it out. At an intermission, come out, take your choice what's on the table. We got 93 responses on the advertising survey. The newspaper was the primary source. We did a dance in which I taught 5 calls. 5 calls. I did it in the Sicilian circle. Kit is good at line dancing and mixer dancing, circles and lines. She worked that. We did Cotton Eye Joe. We did Texas two-step. We did a country waltz. We did a cowboy cha-cha. We fed the 150 plus people. That was our biggest boo-boo. We didn't do that effectively, but we kept music going, and they danced freestyle while the others were in line and eating. The dance was scheduled to go from 7:30 until 9:30. I started doing traditional squares at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, I still had 10 squares on the floor, not wanting to go home. Go, folks. Come back the next time. I'm tired. It took us 2 days to recover a little bit of energy from that thing. That was the first of a series of what we call hoedowns. Every 2 weeks, we have another hoedown. We don't call it beginner hoedown, we just call it a hoedown. On our advertising surveys, we got some comments from folks. The only thing I want to do is Texas two-step. God bless you, go to Cowboys. Be sure to take an extra set of clothes so you can throw yours in the washer when you get home. We've had some people leave because they didn't get enough Texas two-step. We gear it to the new dancer, someone who is either not a dancer or somebody that a friend drags in. We get comments like most fun we've had in 15 years or other things like that. The drop-off in attendance after the first free one was 75 people attended the second. The third one we did on the 31st of January. I invited the local area council to come in and the club members. That day, that night, we had a major blizzard scheduled for Colorado Springs. It started pouring snow about 3:30 in the afternoon. We still held a dance. We had 45 people attend. Pikes Peak kind of diverted the snow around either side of us, and it was not a major issue, but it scared a lot of people from coming out. Consistently, we draw between 65 and 75 people at these dances. We generally have a couple of other callers show up and a cure. Occasionally, the traditional caller, I have him do something. The other caller that comes is an expert at Texas two-step and country. Let him do one session. We keep it down where the people, we know that we have new people every time. When we get the dancers on the floor for the Texas two-step, we teach a basic Texas two-step and maybe one addition to that, maybe a twirl, how to do a turn or something of that nature. Same thing for Cotton Eye Joe. We do it. We show them a different version of Cotton Eye Joe. Kit got on the web and found just oodles of versions of Cotton Eye Joe. She won't run out of material probably until sometime in 2006. They're coming in. They love it. What we did, we made that first step on the ladder way down here instead of what the mainstream and plus and all, they've got it way up here. It takes a tall guy to make that first step. We need to make it easy for people to come do business with us. If a club wants to get innovative, wants to help pay the bills, consider doing this if you can find the space and everything. Those people are so happy to dance where there is no smoke and no alcohol and do something that they can do and have fun that they'll keep coming back. When they pay their $3 or $5 or whatever, that's money well spent to them. If you get it and kind of keep quiet about what you use it for, you've tapped an income source that will help some of your clubs to survive. How did we get the advertising and how did we structure it? We just asked for it. Kit has gone out and met some of the people and found out other little jewels of wisdom from them about how to continue to get it. We have an organization there in the Springs that has a 501c3 status that I've worked closely with for a long time. So if somebody will not give you public service advertising and you can tap into something like this, we're co-sponsored by a nonprofit. An organization there in the Springs that has a 501c3 status that I've worked closely with for a long time. That'll open a few doors for you. Are these people going to go on and move into club level dancing? Some will, some won't. I just hope they keep coming back. What has it done in the way of that? From the first dance, we had 2 church deacons bring some of their flock down, kind of herded them in. I got a call about 2 weeks ago from one of the ladies in that group. She wants to start mainstream lessons for them. I said, get a hall and pick a night. Here are the nights I have available. The 14th of this month, we got 2 squares plus some other people going to be at the first class. The other part of it that's kind of a spin-off from the exposure that you've talked about, some guy started a new local newspaper on the west side of town, and he called me just as we were packing to come out here, wanting to do an article on the carriage stop. It's kind of a historical building, and he wanted to know what we did. I said, I'm really too busy to give you a lot of detail now. On the 20th of this month, though, I'm going to sit down with him. I'm going to get a couple of the other callers, and he's going to do an article on the carriage stop and what goes on in this building. It used to be the dining hall for a lumber yard when they sawed the big trees. Now they do specialty work, and the place is rented out for dancing, daytime and nighttime. One of the ladies that is a member of a folk dance group that I work with at church was approached by one of her friends that works with an organization called SET, and I don't know what that means. It's an acronym for something, but they do outreach stuff to low-income adults. And she's doing a program, and this is the one thing that really has me excited, doing an outreach program to bring people in from the eastern plains of Colorado for 2 nights. Each person pays $100. They come in, 4 people from each community out there. They put them up in a 4-star hotel. They have a banquet. They have classes during the day, and then they have a banquet on Monday night before they go back home on Tuesday. She wanted me in 1 hour to teach the people out of that group how to go back and start a dance program and teach the seniors that were out there, many of whom had lost a spouse and were sitting at home glued to the TV set or doing nothing and their health going down, how to dance and get back into the social life. I told her that impossible, I'll work with you, but it takes more than 1 hour to get something like that done. What it is going to boil down to, I think, we're doing that, plus we're doing the dance that night for them. They had a teenage band that was going to play music for people a lot older than I am, and she saw right away that that wouldn't go over. And so anyway, we're doing that, and I'm working with the Lloyd Shaw Foundation. I've talked to Stu Shacklet from the Kentucky Dance Federation. We've got to pull some music together, get them on CDs that these people can use in a program out there. But I think it can do some exciting things for CALLERLAB also. We've got to come up with easy level dances that they can get these people to doing without a lot of work. Get people into the activity socializing, but somebody there has got to have an ASCAP BMI license to put on these dances. So I see it as a potential boon to CALLERLAB in future members. I talked to Dr. Bill Lichman from Lloyd Shaw Foundation, and he said, Ron, run with it for a while. I like what you're doing. Get back to me when you need us to help you out on the thing. They have developed programs for the exceptional dancer, the handicapped, sign language, all kinds of nice things like that with music. And they have one for elementary and secondary education. This is going to be tailored toward the adult that has probably never danced much or at all or for a long time. We've got to get them back to doing things.
Ron, I hate to interrupt you, but
yes,
I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. I just want to make sure that we get lots of time for other people to talk as well. Is there anybody else has any comments? Thank you, Ron. That was great. Ron, you need to run the mic. You're not done. It's just the talking part's done. Two other things while he's passing the microphone. We should always focus on the social aspect of dance, not the dance itself.
Good morning. Still morning, barely. I'm Ron Nelson. I live in San Diego, and I work in the media duplication industry, and I work with marketing directors for major corporations all over the United States. And as the theme of this whole thing is marketing works, it does work. However, if we were ever to get national sponsorship, that is somebody with deep pockets to promote square dancing, then we have to have a product that we can sell every day of the year. And what was just described is exactly the kind of program that we will need to have available across the country in order to achieve national sponsorship. You can't have a class several times a year, even multi-cycle, every 2 or 3 months is not often enough to obtain national sponsorship. That was the only point I wanted to make.
Thank you. There's a question over here, Dana. Hurry up, Ron. Come on. State your name.
Dana Shermer
From where?
Kansas.
Okay, thanks.
And one thing we should realize is a lot of free publicity out there for us if we want to use it and look for it. Recreation centers, county recreation centers, city recreation centers, always looking for this type of activities, and they're willing to work with you. I've worked with several where they will actually work with you, put the information in their brochures, and those brochures go all up through the county or the section of the city or whatever. And it works real well at no cost to you. If you just go to them and tell them what your activity is and just plead with them a little bit, they're willing to work with you. One of the recreation centers I worked with, we went in looking for rent for a building in the lease, and ended up they gave me the facility free and the publicity free. It worked out great. I was talking to the Webbers this morning from USDA, from Liberty, Missouri, and if you want to talk on it, you can. But basically, they're with the school district there, and their square dance group, and the school district puts in their publication. Is it a monthly publication?
Yeah, I stopped. It's their adult education or community education program that the Liberty Public School District does. Their paper goes out to 38,000 homes, and the last 2 issues that's went out has had square dancing classes in it. The school actually pays the caller, takes all the registrations. The club members show up to be angels and get new club members.
With that, I've got a session tomorrow on winning ways with Tom. I'm not going to tell any more. We'll have it then.
Jim, were you here when at the beginning when I didn't see you come in? You should all know that Jim Weber is a member of the arts as well, representing USDA. And are you going to tell everybody about you? Would you please? Okay, well, then let me.
One thing that we talked about was Toot Your Horn. That is a big program. I am an officer in the Missouri Federation Square and Round Dance Clubs. One of the programs that we have is called Toot Your Horn. And one of the requirements for the clubs that have to do is have 6 articles in your newspapers. And that's tooting your horn. That's getting it out to the public. And badge is giving to the clubs to put on their banners to show that they participated in this. That's one good program that's out there.
Any other comments? One up here at the front. Some other things that I've seen, by the way, while we're just going there. A club, an association sponsored gave the local restaurants all placemats, paper placemats to put under their food so people could take them away at the end of a dance, and that was very successful.
I'm Bob Knopfsinger from Pullman, Washington, and some of the things that have been said here, I've got brief reactions to them. First of all, the thing about the Internet, I'd be very careful about putting things out on the Internet that might be marked as spam. I think we need to stay away from that. But, you know, there are organizations that may have their own website or their own listserv, and if we can get on there in some way, for example, an RV club or, you know, some other recreational organization, a dance organization, and we can get in there and put a link to a square dance website or join the listserv and submit some messages to them, about square dancing and so on. That might be a good thing. Another thing I had a reaction to was the public relations and news releases, and I'm not familiar with this book, The Public Relations Kit for Dummies, but it sounds like it might be a good idea. There are some sort of standard formats that people at newspapers and so on expect to get PR releases in, and they're designed to make it easy for them to put the kind of thing in the paper they want to do. It also might ward us away from dummy-like mistakes. For example, I know of several situations where summer festival T-shirts were produced that said nothing about them, about square dancing on them. Open the Gate in '98 gave the dates and the location, no mention of square dancing. So we need to avoid those. And then finally, the demos. I want to get politically incorrect here. Yeah, it's certainly true that we need to match the music to the target audience. I think we also need to match the dancers to the target audience. If we are going for a family audience, then we need to have some young dancers, some dancers who could be perceived as their parents and as their grandparents. If we're trying to recruit young people, I don't think we can do it effectively with grandparent-age dancers. So that's something we ought to think about. And one last thing, some of the expressions we use in calling, especially in patter, if we're trying to recruit, let's say, women who work in offices, who work for government and so on, who work in a place where if one of their co-workers called them a pretty little girl, he would get in serious trouble. We might want to avoid that kind of language in our demos. It's easy enough to say, swing the partner promenade. You don't have to say, swing the pretty little girl and promenade. So if we kind of think about the target audience, and model everything to that, we may have a little bit more success. Thank you.
Darren Camber from the state of Washington. The state of Washington has formed a new state marketing committee. And what we are really focusing on is basically two parts of the marketing. You have the marketing of the activity, but at the same time, as we were talking, it's like, how do you sell something to someone who doesn't first know they have a need for it or that they have the desire? So what we've come up with is kind of a plan to be trying to promote the need and desire part of our activity. Then follow up with the marketing part of it. One of the things that we are looking at is we watch some of the national ads on TV. For instance, Pepsi-Cola. When you see an ad for Pepsi-Cola, they don't tell you where to buy the Pepsi-Cola. All they're trying to do is create the need and the desire for the product. Then when your ads come out in your local newspaper and things like that, from Albertsons, Safeway, stores like that, they have the product there and tell you where to buy it. We're trying to approach it on the same lines as that, to try to create the need and desire, and then follow up to where they can go and get the product.
Good comment. Right behind you there, Ron. And we'll come up front here after. Say what?
My name is Will Eads. I'm from California. I'm the guy that has the T-shirts that were over in the registration room, but now we've moved it over into the vendor area. And I'd like to, you talk about toot your own horn, that's what I want to do. I want you to know that I don't make any profit off the shirts to start with. It's strictly a promotional thing. And I know several of you people have them. I've seen you wear them. And I myself wear mine daily in my own area. And I attract a lot of attention. And especially going to the fitness club, we go down there and I wear them. And people now have known me as a square dancer. And even go to the bank, even the guard there says, oh, there comes the square dancers again. Just because of the T-shirts. I recently had, talking to one of our newer couples that just came into class, and I asked, well, how did you get here? How did you find out about square dancing and us? And she said, well, we were at a golf tournament. We seen a fellow over there wearing a T-shirt that said, learn to square dance. And she says, you know, there's something we thought we'd like to try. So I went over there, and this is how I got here. I talked to him. So, and I've had stories from people all over the place simply because somebody wore a T-shirt someone come and talk to them. And this is a great advertisement. If you'd like to have T-shirts, I've got them here. You can order them for your own club in the club colors. You can do all that kind of stuff. If you'll see me, I'll be glad to help you out in any way I can. But it's the only national advertisement we have going right now.
Thank you, Will. We'll come up here for one more comment, and then our moderators have a couple closing comments, and then we'll eat.
Dave Harry from Washington State. A couple of topics I want to touch on. You talked about teaching in the public schools, and a bunch of you raised your hands that were retired and capable of doing that. I'm not retired. I'm a full-time square dance caller, and that is my forte, so to speak. I teach almost every single day in the public schools in square dancing, and I've never, ever advertised for a job. It's all been from word of mouth. So if you are interested in doing something like that, all you have to do is get the first school down and do a great job of socializing and working with the kids, and you'll find out you'll have more work than you can ever handle, and it's really rewarding. Money has nothing to do with it. It's a matter of really working with the kids and watching the enthusiasm that happens there. So by all means, if you're interested in doing it, get involved with the public schools. You don't need a teaching degree to do it. All you need to do is have a PE teacher that's willing to say, yeah, I want you to come in and teach my PE class. And you'll find out they just absorb the material like a sponge. We cover almost the entire mainstream program in 10 days in teaching in the public schools. And if you get out on the floor and dance with them, you better have your track shoes on, because they just run like all get out to get to the next movement. The other comment I'd like to make is that we, based on the movements that I teach in the school program, we started a 4-week dance program in our area a couple of years ago. It was very successful, and it was a complete failure. It was very successful in that we, over the year time that we ran the program, we introduced about 150 people to square dancing, which was more than all of the clubs in our area combined as far as the number of students that they introduced to square dancing. It was a complete failure in that the square dance community would not support it because they looked down on the program because it didn't have enough material. We danced about 20 movements in the program that we taught over a 4-week program, and they would not support it in that they felt that there wasn't enough material there for them to dance, which is really sad. Even though those people that were coming into that program were going in and taking up their classes and whatever. So I think one of the major things that we have to do in advertising for square dancing is to educate our own dancers that if you want an advertising program to succeed, you have to be willing to bite the bullet and dance with those people. We had a hall that would hold approximately 16 squares, and we would end up with like maybe 2 squares this week and 2 squares the next week. And what we felt was happening is people would come and go through the whole program and look around and say, there's nobody here, this must not be a successful activity, and head out. Although we did get some of them that would come in and sign up for the regular mainstream programs and whatever. But that's what we felt was a failure of our program, that we didn't have a hall full of people for those people to see that this was a highly successful dance program.
Spoke a while ago. I've said anytime I get a chance, I'm going to mention it. 4 years ago, when I suggested this program and how we fund it, I said, you know, a nickel a set, a quarter a dance, cause marketing being what it is, they will support you. One guy and his club did so, and they've been sending in $6,000 every year for the last 3 years. And we had 40% even of the clubs do that, we'd have somewhere around $600,000 to launch the kind of programs we need now in grant writing, public relations, you know, and people and getting people to come in and raise the big dollars for us. This is what we have to have, and it's people like that that I can't help praise enough. Thank you.
Okay, just a few closing comments. Boy, a lot of great stories. I was a little bit familiar with what you guys are doing up in Washington, for example. Make sure if you haven't already shared those things with Tom for his Winning Ways publication, that you do that. A lot of other people can learn from what we're doing. You guys were talking about how you're going to, in Washington, you're going to kind of try and get people to have educate them that they have a desire, there's a need for the product before you ask them. It's basically two kinds of marketing. The one is brand. What you're doing there is you're building a brand. You're letting people know who you are, what it is you do, why it's really good for them. And if you're going to win with that, tell them over and over. It's called frequency to the target. In radio, we deal with frequencies all the time. Tell them over and over and over again why it's good for you, what the benefit is that they'll get out of it. If you'll do that so that they're educated on it and they go, man, that sounds like fun, it's going to be a great time, it's going to be really good for me, I really know and feel good about the activity. Then when you do the other part, which is call to action marketing, where you put the ad in the newspaper that says we have class or we have a beginner dance starting, come on out. What you have to create the desire first. So I applaud you guys in Washington for understanding that you've got to do that. And that's a lot of the things that I think we've talked about today. We talk about putting it on access, cable access. If you talk about doing demonstrations, none of that, add quality to your life, learn to square dance. None of that is really call to action. Yeah, learn to square dance is, but it's not where, when, how, who. It's just think about this. What a great thing you can be participating in. The more that we can do of that, the more successful we're going to be. Just a quick plug for Marketing Committee. We have our meeting on on Tuesday afternoon at 3:30 in one of the rooms. 7, I think it is. And we're going to talk about some of those things. I have a very specific structure that I follow every day with businesses that want to market themselves, and it goes right down a 5-step structure. I'm going to go through that, and we're going to kind of take a test cause. We're going to pick a target. If we decide who we're going to go after, then what do they want? What are their benefits that they want? Once we know that, who's our competition? Where can we stand out from that competition? Once we've figured that part out, then you go to, well, what are we going to say to them? What's our strategy? What's our position? And then we get into tactics, and the tactics are all of these things that we've talked about. So we're going to go through that in that session, and I would encourage you to come and join us. Thanks.
I have no closing comments other than to thank everybody who said a few words. Thanks to Jim. Thanks to Ron Counts for carrying the microphone for us. 2 fast questions. Do you think that this session should be repeated next year? Show of hands. Excellent. Thank you. And I think that's all. Unless there's any final comments, the panelists will be hanging here for a few minutes, and try to attend the conventions. And don't forget to do your critique sheets. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you all a little later. Thanks.